Hi everyone! I'm Ana Maria and today I'm going to show you how to crochet my Let It Snow cowl crochet pattern. This is a crochet pattern that's available for free on my blog, or you can purchase the ad-free PDF version from my shops. I'll put the links down below. For today's project, I selected this yarn from my stash, which is an alpaca, wool, polyamide, and silk blend. And I'm also using my 5mm crochet hook. This yarn is a little bit thinner than what I originally used in my pattern, so I'm picking a smaller hook size and we'll see how it goes. So without further ado, let's get started. The Let It Snow cowl is a reversible cowl worked entirely on the right side. It uses an adaptation of the interlocking crochet technique that I came up with, namely to work it seamlessly in the round. With this technique, you will end up with an invisible join on both sides of your fabric, and no one will be able to tell where your rounds start and end. For your reference, here is the join. I'm tracing it now with my index finger. Notice how it blends perfectly with the rest of your pattern. The cowl also features my signature faux knit edgings around the top and the bottom for that perfectly smooth and professional finish. For this tutorial, we'll start with the gauge swatch directions, which have you chain 42 or a multiple of 6. I went ahead and chained 42 already. Now it's time to join in the round. So, without twisting my chain, I'll go ahead and find the back bump of the first chain made, and I'm going to slip stitch into it. Like so. Next, I'm going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. And then I'll single crochet in the same back bump where I joined and in the back bump of each chain around. The back bump of the chain is right here at the back of the chain. These two are the regular front and back loops. What's left is the back bump, visible if you flip the chain over. This is the loop that we'll be working into. So, flip the chain over and start working into the back bumps. I'll keep going around the chain and I'll meet you back here. I kept working around the chain and now I reached the end of the round. At this point, I suggest you do a quick stitch count, just to make sure that you have the correct number of stitches. In this case, we need to have 42 stitches. After that, you'll slip stitch into both loops of the first single crochet made to complete setup round 1. To start setup round 2, chain 4. Then I'll skip this single crochet where I joined into, because this belongs to the beginning chain 4. I'm going to also skip the next single crochet as well and mark it, like so. And then I'm going to double crochet in the next single crochet and chain 1. Once again, skip the next single crochet and double crochet in the next single crochet, then chain 1. I'm going to repeat this mesh pattern all the way around, and I'll meet you back here. At the end of the round, I have double crocheted into this single crochet, chain 1, and then I have one single crochet left. I'm going to skip this last single crochet and I'll slip stitch into the third chain from the beginning chain 4. To do this, I'll pick up the first loop and then the next one, leaving the back bump of this chain alone. So essentially, I'm slip stitching into the front and back, or the two regular loops of this chain, like so. Setup round 2 is now complete and I'm ready to drop my main color on the right side. To do this, I'll simply pull up my loop up high so it's secure and it doesn't come undone. And then I'll drop the main color closest to me. Since this entire pattern is worked on the right side only, the right side will always be closest to me, and the wrong side will always be farthest away from me. To start setup round 3, I'm going to join my contrast color into this marked single crochet from 2 rounds below, going behind the stitches from the previous round. So I'm going to insert my hook from back to front, underneath this chain space here, and into the single crochet that is marked, bring over my contrast color, and join it via slip stitch, like so. Then I'm going to chain 4. Notice how this beginning chain 4 sits behind the chain space from the previous round. I can now remove the marker and carry on with setup round 3. Setup round 3 is worked entirely into the single crochets from 2 rounds below, while completely ignoring the stitches made on the previous round. The first double crochet is worked in front of the stitches from the previous round. So, yarn over, insert your hook into the next single crochet, going from front to back, and making sure that your hook comes out in front of the stitches from the previous round. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 twice to complete the double crochet, and then chain 1. Notice how this contrast color double crochet sits in front of the stitches from the previous round. The next double crochet is worked behind the previous round. To do this, yarn over and then insert your hook into the next single crochet from 2 rounds below, going from behind this main color chain space here, grabbing the 2 loops of the single crochet, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2 twice to complete the double crochet, and then chain 1. Notice how this double crochet sits behind the stitches from the previous round. What I don't want you to do is working over the corresponding chain space from the previous round, like so. See how this double crochet is visible from the front, and it's also visible from the back, because it's worked over the chain space. This is something you should always avoid, and your double crochets should always exist either in front or behind the corresponding chain space from the previous round. Like so. See how this chain space is unaffected by my double crochet. My double crochet simply exists behind it or in front of it, and the corresponding chain spaces are ignored. Next, we're going to crochet another double crochet in front, like so, followed by 2 double crochets behind the previous round, like so. Carry on like this, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. At the end of the round, I completed 1 double crochet in front, and now I have 1 single crochet remaining. I'll work 1 double crochet into this single crochet from behind the previous round. Then I'll chain 1. Then behind the main color, which was dropped on the right side, I'm going to slip stitch to join. Again, I'm joining into the 3rd chain from the beginning chain 4. Like so. Setup round 3 is now complete, and now I'll drop my contrast color on the wrong side. So, pull the loop up high so it's secure, and drop the contrast color on the wrong side, which is farthest away from me. Remember, the right side is always closest to you, and the wrong side is always farthest away from you. We're now ready to start our pattern repeat. To start round 1 of the pattern repeat, I'll pick the main color back up on my hook. In front of the previous round, chain 4. Since we dropped our main color on the right side, the beginning chain 4 that I made here is going to sit in front of the previous round. Then the pattern repeat for this round is 2B, 1F. So, for the next double crochet you worked behind the previous round, yarn over and insert the hook under the corresponding chain space from the previous round, grab the loops of the double crochet and push them back and behind that chain space, while also inserting your hook through them to start the next double crochet. Yarn over and pull up a loop, then complete your double crochet as usual. Then chain 1 to complete your first V-stitch. This V-stitch sits behind the stitches from the previous round. Once again for the next V-stitch. And then one F-stitch, which is worked in front of the previous round. So, yarn over and insert your hook into the next double crochet, making sure your hook comes out in front of the stitches from the previous round and not around like this. This is a common mistake that I want you to avoid in interlocking crochet. Rather, you need to complete your double crochet like this. Then, repeat the 2B 1F pattern. Once again, my first V-stitch, my second V-stitch, and my F-stitch. Carry on like this, 2B 1F, 2B 1F, until 2 double crochet remain. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet remaining, here and here. And I'm going to work a V-stitch into each of them. Like so. Remember that we dropped the contrast color on the wrong side, so in front of it, we're going to slip stitch into this third chain. Round 1 is now complete, and I'll drop the main color on the wrong side, so farthest away from me. To start round 2, I'll pick the contrast color back up on my hook. Behind the previous round, chain 4, and then 1F, 2B around. The first F stitch goes right here. And then 2B, again working behind the stitches from the previous round. You can already see the pattern starting to shape up, with the plus sign here on the right side and the square motif on the wrong side. Carrying on, 1F, then 2Bs. Carry on like this until the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet remaining. I'm going to 1F in the next one and 1B in the last one. And then, in front of the main color, slip stitch in the top of the third chain. Round 2 is complete, and I'm dropping the contrast color on the right side. To start round 3, pick up the main color, which is currently sitting behind the previous round, and chain 4. The pattern for this round is 2F, 1B around. So, the first F stitch, then the second F stitch, and then the B stitch. Once again, 2F, then 1B. Right now, the pattern is clearly starting to shape up. Carry on with this stitch repeat until you reach the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet left, and I will 1F into each of them, like so. And then, behind the contrast color, slip stitch to join. And round 3 is complete. Now, I'll drop my main color on the wrong side. To start round 4, I'm picking the contrast color back up on my hook, and in front of the previous round, chain 4. And then the pattern is 1B, 2F. So, the B stitch goes right here, and then the 2 F stitches. Once again 1B, then 2 Fs, carry on like this, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. At the end of the round, when I have 2 double crochet left, I'm going to 1B into the next one, and 1F into the last one. Then, in front of the main color, slip stitch to join, and drop my contrast color on the wrong side. Round 4 is now complete. To start round 5, pick the main color back up on my hook, and behind the previous round, chain 4. Remember, the contrast color was dropped on the wrong side, and that's where it needs to stay during this round. The stitch repeat for round 5 is 2F, 1B. So, there we have our first F, then our second F, and then 1B. Once again 1F, the second F, and then 1B. Carry on like this, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet remaining, and I'm going to 1F into each one of them, like so. Then, in front of the contrast color, slip stitch to join. Drop the main color on the right side, and round 5 is complete. To start round 6, which is also our last round in the pattern repeat, I'll pick the contrast color back up on my hook, and behind the previous round, chain 4. And then 1F, 2B all the way around. There you have the first F stitch, followed by 2 Bs, just like so. Once again 1F, and then 2 Bs. Carry on like this until the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet left, as always, and I'm going to 1F in the next one, and 1B in the last one. Then, behind the main color, slip stitch to join. And now we have completed the 6-round pattern repeat. From this point forward, you'll keep repeating rounds 1 through 6 for your desired number of times. For the gauge swatch, the pattern says to repeat rounds 1 through 6 2 more times, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that and meet you back here when I'm done. I now completed rounds 1 through 6 2 more times, for a total of 21 rounds, including my first 3 setup rounds. Now I'm ready to go to the last rounds, which will make sure that my pattern ends the same way it begins, symmetrically, with a row of stars across the top. I have the contrast color dropped on the wrong side from round 6, and my main color dropped on the right side from round 5. To start the next round, I'll pick the main color back up on my hook and, in front of the contrast color, chain 4. And then carry on with the stitch repeat of 2B, 1F. So, 2B, 1F. Once more, 2B, 1F. Carry on like this and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet remaining as always, and I'm going to 1B into each of them. Like so. Then, in front of the contrast color, slip stitch to join. To start the next round, I'll pick the contrast color back up on my hook and, behind the previous round, chain 4. Then I'm going to 1F, 2B, all the way around. So, there you have your first F, then 2 B's. Once again, 1F, 2B. Carry on like this and I'll beat you back at the end of the round. At the end of the round, I have 2 double crochet remaining, and I'm going to 1F into the next one, and 1B into the last one. Then, my main color is dropped on the right side, so behind it, I'll slip stitch to join. At this point, I can fasten off my contrast color because I don't need it anymore. To start the next round, which is the very last round in our interlocking crochet pattern, I'll pick the main color back up on my hook and, in front of the contrast color, chain 4. And then I'm going to F around. So, each double crochet gets an F stitch. Just like so. Continue placing 1 F into each double crochet, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. I have now completed my last F stitch, and I'm slip stitching to join. We are now done with the interlocking crochet part. Let's take a look at how the pattern looks like on the other side, because this is a reversible stitch pattern which looks pretty on both sides. Notice how the join is completely invisible and blends perfectly into the pattern. Bringing it back to the right side, we are now ready to go ahead and start with the finishing rounds. For this, I'm going to use a smaller hook size. This next round is going to join the 2 layers of interlocking crochet together. So, I'll chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, then insert my hook into the first double crochet from the previous round, which is the top of the beginning chain 3 where we joined, as well as the corresponding chain 1 space from 2 rounds below. Yarn over and pull through the 2 stitches together, and then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook to complete your first single crochet. The next single crochet is done in the exact same way. So, insert your hook into the next stitch from the previous round, which is the chain 1 space right here. Insert your hook under it. as well as into the next double crochet from 2 rounds below, which is the third chain from the beginning chain 4, and work your single crochet in both stitches together. You're going to repeat this all the way around until you reach back here at the first single crochet. So, once again, insert my hook into the next double crochet from the previous round and the corresponding chain 1 space from 2 rounds below, and complete my single crochet. Next, insert my hook into the next chain 1 space from the previous round and the corresponding double crochet from 2 rounds below, and complete my single crochet. Carry on like this until you reach the end of the round. At the end of the round, I will not slip stitch to join in the first single crochet, but rather I'll move straight into the next round, which is a round of yarn over slip stitches all the way around. So, yarn over, insert my hook into the next single crochet, yarn over and pull through everything at once. And I'm going to mark this as my first yarn over slip stitch. Once again, yarn over, insert my hook into the next single crochet, yarn over and pull through everything. Remember, when working yarn over slip stitches, to keep your tension a little bit looser than usual, otherwise the fabric can get too tight around the edges. You can always use a larger hook size if you notice your yarn over slip stitches are too tight. The way I like to crochet the yarn over slip stitch is like this. I yarn over, I insert my hook, I grab the yarn, and then, as I pull it through the loops of the single crochet, I pull it normally, and then, when it's time to pull this loop through the remaining 2 loops on my hook, I like to rotate my hook like this, and then pull through 2. So, once again, I yarn over, insert, grab the yarn, pull it through like normal, and then rotate the hook and pull through, like this. It's the way I find that I can work this stitch at a normal pace, so it doesn't slow me down too much. Once I reach the beginning of the round again, I'm going to remove the marker, and I'll start with round 3, which is a round of slip stitches worked in the 3rd loop only. So, I'm going to view my work from this angle in order to easily identify the 3rd loop. The 3rd loop is this one right here. I'm going to slip stitch into it. So, again, you have the front loop, the back loop, and the 3rd loop. And this is where we're going to slip stitch into. Once again, try to keep your tension a little looser than normal. At the end of the round, fasten off your main collar, and you're done with the first set of edging rounds. Now you're going to rotate your work and do the same thing across the other end by working into the foundation chains that you started with. Remember that we worked the very first round of single crochet into the back bumps of the foundation chains, leaving the regular front and back loops of the chains empty. These are the loops that we'll be working into to complete the edging rounds on the other side of the cowl. Fasten off the main collar and congratulations, you are done! Don't forget to weave in your ends and to block your cowl according to fiber. If you want to know more about how to block your crochet pieces, I'll put a link in the description to my complete guide on blocking. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new from it. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it and hit subscribe for more interlocking crochet tutorials. Speaking of which, I have a bunch of interlocking crochet patterns available for sweaters and all kinds of accessories. Many of them are reversible, so be sure to check out the link in the description. And that's it from me for today. I'm off to start a new whip probably, and I wish you happy crocheting. Bye!